Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a really complex geopolitical puzzle, maybe the Middle East. The pieces are constantly shifting, and the stakes are incredibly high. For a region often defined by its conflicts, there's this critical question hanging in the air right now. Will the, let's call it fragile, ceasefire between Israel and Iran actually last? Or are we, maybe on the brink of another eruption?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. So today we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. And to guide us through this really intricate landscape, we have a unique perspective, the insights of Ahmad Zeidabadi. He's a prominent Iranian journalist, academic, political analyst.
And his experiences, his analysis, they offer this rare window, you could say, into the internal dynamics and the external pressures shaping the Middle East right now.
Yeah, it's not just about the events, right? It's the interpretations, the underlying tensions.
Exactly. And the desperate efforts towards some kind of resolution were drawing directly from Zeidabadi's work and, importantly, his personal journey.
Which really raises the question, doesn't it? How do those deeply personal experiences shape such a profound understanding of a whole region?
It gives his analysis a kind of weight you don't always find.
So before we dive into the geopolitical puzzle itself, maybe it's crucial to understand who Ahmad Zeidabadi is. Why are his insights so potent?
Yeah, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Zeidabadi isn't just like an outside observer. He's been a participant, a witness to Iran's modern history. He's a well-known Iranian journalist, academic writer, political analyst, recognized as a notable figure in the Iranian reform movement. He was even Secretary General of the Office for Strengthening Unity.
And here's where it gets really interesting for our topic today. He holds a doctorate in international relations from Tehran University, his PhD thesis, focused specifically on religion and government in Israel.
Think about that. That makes him a direct expert, academically speaking, on the Arab-Israeli conflict itself.
And notably, he has consistently supported the peace process in his writings over the years.
His career kicked off back in '89 with Etalat newspaper. Then he worked with Hamshari, other reformist papers, especially after the '97 Iranian election. And he's always been a staunch defender of ethnic and religious minority rights. You see it in his articles, his speeches.
But as you alluded to, that commitment, it came at a steep price. Let's maybe talk a bit about his history of imprisonment, just for his journalistic work.
Yeah, it's quite something. In 2000, he was first targeted, arrested for failure to respond to a court summons, sentenced to 7 months in Evin prison, including 2 months just in solitary confinement.
Wow.
And then shortly after he gets out, he's detained again. Allegations this time of conspiring against the government, though he was released after the Speaker of Parliament, Mehdi Karoubi, intervened.
So it wasn't just a one-off.
Not at all. Then in 2002, another sentence, 23 months, though it was reduced to 13. And crucially, barred from any public and social activity, including journalism, for 5 years.
5 years, banned from his profession.
Yet he persevered. He kept providing political commentary online, offline, however he could.
But the most harrowing account, the one that really hits home, is from June 2009, right after the Iranian presidential election.
Security forces arrested him, held him incommunicado. His wife reported his state, extremely bad physical and emotional state, after she finally saw him in Evin prison.
Just unimaginable.
He was held in solitary for 35 days in what she described as a coffin-like cell only 1.5 meters long. He went on a hunger strike for 17 days.
70 days.
Which was apparently broken by force by security forces. He told his wife he was severely beaten during interrogation. And his interrogator reportedly told him, and this is chilling, "We are ordered to crush you, and if you do not cooperate, we can do anything we want with you, and if you do not write the interrogation papers, we will force you to eat them."
That's beyond comprehension. Just state-sanctioned terror.
It truly is. And then, in December 2009, the sentence came down. 6 years in prison, 5 years in exile in Gonabad, and a lifetime ban on social and political activities. Charged with sedition, propaganda against the regime.
So this raises that question again, maybe more forcefully. Why endure that?
I think for him it comes down to conviction, that knowledge, understanding, it's most valuable when it's shared, when it's applied. He just refused to be silenced despite everything.
And the world, thankfully, took notice. While he was imprisoned, he received some major international honors.
Yeah, that's right. In 2010, the World Association of Newspapers gave him the Golden Pen of Freedom Award for his courage.
Then in 2011, the UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize. They recognize his exceptional courage, resistance, and commitment to freedom of expression, democracy, human rights, tolerance, and humanity.
Quite the recognition. And in 2016, the International Press Institute honored him as its 68th World Press Freedom Hero.
So understanding this background, it's absolutely vital, isn't it? Because it means his analysis isn't just academic theory.
Not at all. It comes from this place of deep personal, professional conviction. It offers you, the listener, an unfiltered understanding of these incredible complexities.
Okay. So, what does all this mean for the current situation, the Middle East puzzle, the Israel-Iran situation specifically? Zeidabadi offers this really compelling analogy.
Yeah, it's quite vivid. He views the Middle East as a puzzle, right? But not one neatly arranged. He says, its pieces are scattered in the air, and it seems they are gathering together to form a picture.
Scattered in the air, like it's chaotic but maybe moving towards something.
Exactly. He suggests this grand design isn't new. It's been a long-standing initiative, he thinks, pushed by the UN, by successive U.S. administrations, supported by Europe, China, Russia, even Arab countries, and the Israelis, he notes, are working to realize it in their own particular way.
And after the recent, let's call it a war or exchange between Israel and Iran, the interpretations were just starkly different, weren't they?
Completely. The U.S. and Israel, especially the Israelis, they saw it as a complete success. Some even claimed they'd changed the face of the Middle East.
And interestingly, the Israeli opposition apparently agreed with that assessment.
Right, which is telling. But then, in Iran, official circles presented the situation completely reversed. They interpreted it as Israel being forced to accept a ceasefire.
Two totally different realities being projected.
Precisely. And regardless of who claims victory, Zeidabadi points to this persistent issue. He calls it a bone in the wound, something so painful it just can't be tolerated.
A bone in the wound, meaning the current situation just can't last.
That's exactly his point. He insists it cannot continue, this current state of affairs.
So that raises the crucial question then. Can a ceasefire, any ceasefire, really hold when these fundamental issues are still there, festering, and the interpretations are so wildly different?
He seems to think not. He believes neither Iran nor the region, nor even Israel can sustain this fragile situation indefinitely. It's inherently unstable.
So given this unsustainable situation, the talk inevitably turns to a potential agreement, right? Particularly involving Iran and outside powers like the U.S. But that path seems pretty rocky.
Oh, absolutely. Zeidabadi points out there's a significant internal debate happening within Iran. You have diplomats, people in the foreign ministry, who advocate for diplomacy. Even with the U.S., they believe the door shouldn't be closed to an agreement, though, with their own conditions.
But there's an opposing side.
Yes, the hardline faction. And according to Zeidabadi, they've reportedly taken the initiative. They're speaking the first word now. And interestingly, many reformists seem to be, maybe publicly at least, echoing their stance.
So internal divisions are making things tricky, and then there's the rhetoric from outside Iran.
Right. That complicates things further. You have figures like, say, former President Trump talking about a comprehensive agreement, which sounds good, but while he sometimes shows a bit of empathy, maybe suggesting Iranians and Israelis are tired and looking for another way, he often insists on unconditional surrender whenever an agreement is actually discussed.
Okay, let's unpack that. Unconditional surrender. Zeidabadi finds this problematic.
Deeply problematic. He points out, look, unconditional surrender is a term you use after a total military victory, a complete territorial conquest. Think Japan after World War II or Germany.
Right. Occupied territory.
Exactly. But the recent conflict, Israel-Iran, that was more of a technological war, wasn't it? Mutual attacks, yes, but not a territorial occupation in that sense.
So using that language,
Yeah.
What's the impact?
Well, Zeidabadi suggests two possibilities. Either this provocative language is meant to actually discourage Iran from even coming to the table, or it could just be reckless rhetoric, But if it's a serious demand, he's very clear. Iran is not at all ready for such a situation, meaning the war is just poised to continue in another phase. If an agreement is genuinely desired, he argues, the language has to change. You need to create an environment where those in Iran who do want to negotiate feel they can.
So the takeaway is, an agreement could bring mutual benefits, lifted sanctions, development for Iran, but the approach, the language, needs a major shift first.
Pretty much. Otherwise, you risk pushing away the very people who might be open to a deal. It raises the question, doesn't it? Will that shift happen, or will the rhetoric just keep the conflict cycle going?
Okay, so direct talks seem stalled by these hurdles. But Zeidabadi's analysis also shows there's quite a bit happening behind the scenes. regionally, a push for normalization.
Yes, significant efforts. Egypt, for instance, is taking this very seriously. Relations with Iran are reportedly improving significantly, and there was a symbolic move. Tehran supposedly changed a street name from Khalid Islambuli, remember, unorthodox assassin,
Right. Highly controversial figure.
to Sayed Hassan Nasrallah. Zaidabadi interprets this as a sign of a high-level consensus in Iran to mend fences with Cairo, maybe dial back support for certain Islamist groups that worry Egypt.
Interesting. What about Saudi Arabia?
Also very active. They'd reportedly be pleased if Iran's missile and nuclear programs were neutralized. They seem to have pulled back from direct intervention, preferring to mediate. Trump even mentioned the Saudi defense minister congratulated the U.S. on actions against Iran.
But they have a condition, right?
A big one. Saudi Arabia prioritizes a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip first, before any talk of normalization with Israel.
Okay, and other players. China, Russia.
They've been brought in, too, as intermediaries, trying to mediate. And if you look at the core demands being made on Iran from all these different powers, it consistently involves accepting limits on uranium enrichment and restricting the range of their ballistic missiles. Specifically, the focus seems to be preventing them from reaching Israel, not necessarily some super strict, 70-kilometer limit.
And the quid pro quo. What's Iran potentially getting in return?
The expectation is the U.S. would accept Iran as a regional country, one that can expand its relations. Sanctions lifted, a return to a more normal situation.
And this broader regional picture includes Israel.
Definitely. The aim seems to be integrating Israel as an accepted entity. Zeidabadi notes that while it used to be tied strictly to 1967 borders, discussions about Israel's borders seem more flexible now. That's a potential shift.
Lebanon is also a key piece here, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. Tom Barrack, the U.S. rep for Lebanon and Syria, apparently proposed a pretty big deal. Disarm Hezbollah, implement economic reforms, create a unified country, one army, one weapon, one people.
And in return?
Israel would define its borders and withdraw from 5 occupied bases in southern Lebanon.
How was that received in Lebanon?
Surprisingly positively, it seems. The president, prime minister, even Speaker Nabi Berri, who's Shiite and usually seen as a Hezbollah ally, they reportedly liked the proposal. They apparently even warned Hezbollah, take the deal or we'll respond without you.
Wow. That's significant pressure.
It is. Now, Sheikh Naim Qassem, a Hezbollah leader, talked about being ready for peace and resistance, so he didn't reject peace outright. But he stressed Israel must end its occupation first and promise not to violate the ceasefire. Still, Tom Barrack apparently found Lebanon's overall reply unbelievably satisfying.
So Lebanon feels the pressure. Demarcate borders, maybe even join the Abraham Accords for normalization with Israel, despite opposition inside the country.
Yeah, that seems to be the direction things are pushing. And Syria, too, is in talks. They've said they're ready to go back to the 1974 disengagement agreement.
But Israel has conditions there, too.
Right. Israel insists on staying in its buffer zone and wants recognition of the Golan Heights occupied since '67 as Israeli territory if relations normalize. Zeidabadi suggests the new Syrian government seems to be moving towards normalization anyway.
And finally, the Gaza ceasefire. Always simmering.
Always. A draft agreement is apparently maturing, but the sticking points remain. Hostage release, Israeli withdrawal, entry of goods, how Gaza will be administered in the future. Lots of disagreements.
And the U.S. is pushing hard.
Pushing Netanyahu, Qatar, Hamas to get it finalized. It's this incredibly complex web, isn't it? All these negotiations are interlinked.
Which brings up the big risk. Can all these moving parts actually align? Or will one sticking point just derail the whole thing?
That's the billion-dollar question hanging over everything.
So let's bring it back to our core question for this deep dive. Will the Israel-Iran ceasefire hold, or is war going to break out again? What's Zeidabadi's bottom line?
Well, he believes Iran faces a choice. It must either adapt to this new situation, the situation of regional integration.
And just to clarify, integration doesn't mean like Iran breaking up.
No, not territorial disintegration. He means a Middle East where Israel is an accepted part, where there's cooperation, maybe in tech, agriculture, that kind of thing. The U.S., he notes, wants Iran to be part of these Abraham Accords, even if it's just passively, by not opposing the process.
Okay, adapt or? What's the alternative?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe worrying. Despite all these diplomatic efforts we've discussed, Zeidabadi highlights this lingering, very real threat of renewed conflict.
Oh, so?
Remember that internal lack of readiness in Iran to accept anything remotely like unconditional surrender. That could completely blow up negotiations.
Right. The hardliners, the rhetoric.
Exactly. And that, in his view, leads directly to the possibility of another surprise and heavy attack or simply renewing the war. He even mentions activating snapback mechanisms.
Those are the clauses to quickly reimpose sanctions if Iran breaks a deal.
Precisely. So the threat of escalation is still very much there, running parallel to the diplomatic track.
What about the Iranian people in all this?
Mm.
How much does public sentiment play a role?
That's a great question, and Zeidabadi touches on it. He says the Iranian public is actually very unhappy with the recent conflict. While they generally condemn Israel, the overwhelming feeling is that people want the war never to be repeated.
Which contrasts pretty sharply with some of the official narratives coming out of Iran.
Very sharply. And this speaks to internal dissent as well. Zeidabadi observes that even now, it is still difficult to talk about some issues inside Iran. Even making minor criticisms can lead to attacks.
So the official call for national unity.
He argues it's often interpreted as demanding conformity, just falling in line. And that, he says, isn't real national consensus. It can't be sustained in the long run.
So where does that leave us right now? What's the immediate outlook?
According to Zeidabadi, the next week or two could be critical. Things like the upcoming Trump-Netanyahu talks in Washington, events like that. He believes that very soon we'll get a clearer picture. Whether we should expect a breach of the ceasefire and new military movements, or whether a path to a political and diplomatic process will begin. The situation's really fluid, kind of on a knife's edge.
Wow, what a deep dive that was into just incredibly complex currents shaping the Middle East. We've really seen how one insightful voice, Ahmad Zeidabadi, forged by such intense experience, can illuminate this delicate balance, can't he? Between conflict, cooperation, internal struggles, external pressures, especially on this specific Israel-Iran ceasefire question.
Absolutely. And if you connect it to the bigger picture, like Zeidabadi does with his puzzle analogy, it's just so clear the region is at a crossroads, a really critical one. You have this desire, this push for a more integrated Middle East, with Israel potentially accepted as part of it, but that clashes head-on with these deep-seated internal political dynamics, particularly in Iran, and this provocative rhetoric from all sides that could easily just reignite the whole thing.
Pushing those puzzle pieces into a totally different, maybe much more volatile formation.
Exactly.
So as we watch and wait, to see whether diplomacy unfolds or if military action flares up again, here's something for you to think about. Given everything we've heard, especially Zeidabadi's unique perspective on Iran's internal dynamics and the regional pressures, what do you think is the single most overlooked factor right now? The one thing that could really tip the scales, either towards a fragile peace or back towards conflict in the Middle East?